In terms of writing about it, I think the two chapters that were the most interesting to write were 54 and 74. So 54 was actually very easy to write or easy to structure, maybe is a better way of putting it, in that the two big countries, the two big stories were West Germany back on the world stage after the Second World War. The remnants of a great Hungarian culture of the 30s produced the Oranjepot, the Golden Squad, Puskás and Bostik and Sibor and Koksich, brilliant team. And they meet in the final. So you can write both of them and they meet at the climax of a chapter, which is very handy and very nice. Whereas Italy and Austria, who were the best two teams in 34, they meet in the quarterfinal. And then you've got this awkward bit at the end where you have to describe the last two games that Italy win, but actually the big game's the quarterfinal. But 74, I think, it's either 74 or 90 is the longest chapter, but 74, the amount of stuff going on around that tournament. Obviously, you've got the Netherlands, you've got total football, you've got Cruyff, and you've got the pool party before the semi-final, but it's only reported before the final. All of that, football, newsy, tabloidy intrigue. But also, you've had the oil shock late in 73, which has had a massive impact. You've got West Germany absolutely paranoid about security after what happened at the Olympics in 72 and the terror attacks on the Israeli team. You've got West Germany squad going on strike on the eve of the tournament over bonuses. The advent of boomerism in football, these sort of, we're rebelling against the machine, give us more money. And the Dutch and the West Germans both had it. And Helmut Schön, this sort of representative of a post-war generation. I mean, Helmut Schön, who I have to say, I had not realized what an interesting man he is, that he grew up in Dresden, a very cultured a family who kept on letting out a flat to a Jewish family until 1938. They were sort of on the right side of history. They were on the right side there. And then he gets caught up in East German politics after the war, falls out with Erich Honecker and thinks, God, I've got to get out. And he didn't have a good relationship with Sepp Herberger, the West Germany coach, who thought he was a bit of a malingerer. But Herberger says, well, I'll get you on a coaching course in Cologne and we can get you the papers to leave Dresden and go to Cologne. And of course, he never goes home. But he has to sort of flee in the dead of night. But he's very representative of that West German post-war generation. And it's all about making amends. So he says to his players in 66, more important than winning is being polite and putting on a good show and showing that we West Germans are gentlemen. And this idea of doing your service for your country, he can't understand that players were, you want 70,000 Deutschmarks to play. What? That doesn't no, it's your job to serve. And he basically has a breakdown. He has such a breakdown, they have to mash up his food for him. He can't even chew anymore. And Beckenbauer ends up taking over. You've got the coup in Chile, which then leads to the Soviets refusing to play the game in the Estadio Nacional in Santiago, the playoff. The Pinochet's coup against the Marxist Allende's government, which had been democratically elected. And the Soviets say, well, how can we play in the stadium? It's been used as a torture and execution centre for this evil right-wing regime, where Marxists...
until a week before. No, they had to clean up the blood just in order to let people in.
I went to the FIFA library and I looked at the FIFA report, and it is an astonishing document. So they say, the FIFA report says, yeah, there are people here, but they're people whose homes were destroyed during the conflict, and they're just waiting to rehouse them. But there's no evidence of any... With no evidence, bullet holes in the walls. There's still blood around the plug holes. Yeah. And then there's a whole section on the pitch is in very good condition. But not really the kind of important bit. So you've got all of that going on. You've got
that, Mrs. Lincoln. Yeah. Apart from that, Mrs. Lincoln, how did you enjoy the play?
Yeah. You've got Havelange being elected president a couple of weeks before the tournament, which obviously has huge ramifications for the future of football. So there's so much going on in 74. That was the chapter that was hardest to sort of boil down to get something coherent, because there's so many different strands. England not being there, Poland having a really good side, but Poland being increasingly indebted to the West because of the oil shock. You've got Willy Brandt, the German Chancellor, West German Chancellor. His chief advisor 2 months before the tournament is found to have been a Stasi spy. So you've got all this Cold War politicking going on as well as everything else. And I think the aesthetic of that World Cup is great. The sort of damp, grey. It's
It
the
was a
World Cup done
dismal,
by Le
dismal
Carre.
summer. It's really dismal summer. I remember it. Remember, it was my first World Cup.
Yeah,
I remember all the England Pakistan cricket getting rained off and so on. It was a dismal. So yeah, you got that heavy atmosphere of a Le Carre book, haven't you?
and you got the Wasserschlacht, the water battle between West Germany and Poland, where the game
Yeah.
is delayed because the water's been, but they only dry one half of the pitch, and Franz Beckenbauer realizes that, oh, if we attack the dry end first, they'll be attacking the wet end, and their fast wingers will get tired. I mean, how true that is, I don't know, but that's one of the explanations for why West Germany won that game.
Why I remember it so well is because I knew I would have been 14 at the time, and I knew for a fact that it was either going to be West Germany, Italy, or Brazil that won that World Cup. So I ran a book on it at school, and I was from a poor background, Tim, trying to make a little bit of change. And the one thing that you couldn't bet on, or the three teams you couldn't bet on, guess which three there were. So I was delighted by the time it was a final, because that enabled me to go and splash out a little bit of the cash that I got in. I think I gave Zaire was in that one, wasn't it? Something
Yeah,
like
Almost, yeah.
it's the first Black African side at the World Cup, and
yeah,
that story is an astonishing story as well.
of
The
course, yeah.
Mabuti's use of sport, the I mean, people remember in Wepo Olunga the running out of the wall to kick away that free kick, and sort of,
That was
I think
mad.
John Motson on the commentary says, oh, yeah, typical African naivety in his sort of very patronising
Yeah.
BBC way. But of course, they've been threatened that they're going to go to jail or worse if they lose by more than 3. So Ilunga's excuse is, I was trying to waste time because we were only 2-0 down at the time. We had about, I don't know, 15 minutes to go, run down the clock, and maybe we can keep it to 3, which they did.
Yeah, I remember the Zaire team very well, actually, and that expression, or the sort of sentiment from commentators, has been part of the unfortunate, I think, repercussions or consequences of a world tournament in what is essentially, here in Britain, in any case, in those days, was a very, parochial country to a certain extent. We still had a funny view of Johnny Foreigner, maybe still do to a certain extent, but commentators don't anymore. They know they can't go there. What always used to get me in World Cups was how the naivety was always part of the commentary, but particularly when it came to goalkeepers, for whatever reason. And it came to Nigeria in the '94 World Cup. When they played Argentina for, their usually World Cup encounter, and Nigeria were ahead, and all they needed to do was defend a free kick in a corner, I think it was.
It was Italy.
And
The Italy game.
was it Italy? Was it Italy,
Yeah.
that one? Okay. And I remember this is how that kind of insidious commentary pervades thinking beyond just the television. Because I remember I was so nervous. I know, sorry, it was after the match. So I was so pissed off that I went across the road. And I don't usually drink, Jonathan, but I went across the road to the off license where I was living in Islington. And they had the television on. It was like some Greek guy or something owned the offie. They had a little black and white TV up high, up on the shelves, and they're all watching it, from the counter and everything. And then he saw me and he said, "Well, hang on a second. You're from Nigeria, aren't you?" And he goes, "Why didn't you just all put, 11 men in front of the goal? That's what you should have done." And I could hear the echoes of these commentators. In fact, I was thinking the same thing, but it sounds worse when you hear it coming at you.